So questions, concerns, comments, ideas. I see Dan, and then I see Alois. Daniel?
Yes, Mark, I think these are really interesting ideas to explore, and I wanted to mention to you and to others who might be interested in similar kinds of things that Ori and Miles and Mark Fleurbet and Shakina Debnam, who are also on this call or were on this call, did a survey where we asked some of the questions along the lines of what you're proposing, and we have not analyzed. Well, we did analyze the data a little bit, but we haven't really pursued it very much. We'd be happy to share the data with you if you want to, look at it and might give you ideas for further things that you would want to explore, or ways. Yeah, it might be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. I was partially inspired by that paper, so it's cool. Thanks.
Alois, am I saying your name correctly?
You were saying my name correctly, but you misinterpret my clapping for Mark's presentation.
Oh.
So I still have to make my mind to say something meaningful. But thanks, Mark. I think I like this idea to ask people what they, how life would look like for them if they would have, that would lead them to respond with a 5. So I would be very much interested to see what you get out of this.
Mark?
Yeah, so yeah, I fully support the idea, and you probably know that Cantrill's formulation of the question included in the initial version included a request to describe what it would mean to be at 0 or to be at 10. And he has in his book you have a lot of examples, so it's quite illuminating. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say, the question where you asked about it's about your satisfaction last year or something like that, or some time ago. Probably going back to what Ori was saying, we have to be careful with this kind of question, because people, if you ask about satisfaction, people may conflate preference judgment, preference evaluation, and the shift in their reporting function. So the formulation should, depending on what you are aiming at, it would be better to ask the question in terms of, do you prefer your situation now to what it was 5 years ago? Or this kind of question would avoid a comparison of satisfaction levels over time, where the reporting function and the shift could play a role in the answer. They could remember that they were more difficult to satisfy 5 years ago, and that could play a role in the answer in terms of satisfaction, but would be irrelevant for a preference question.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, I'll think about
that. Claudia.
Yes. I was just wondering if you plan to allow more flexibility in the design by subjects themselves of the thresholds, the ticks on the scale, because I had the idea of doing this, and I tried this on my kids. So what they do is they put relatively equally spaced ticks in the first degrees, but then they'll look for a large space between 9 and 10. So it becomes more and more difficult, like in Oswald. I guess this is what Oswald's intuition was. But I guess, so, okay. And the other thing is, I'm sure that your question about how you will use the scale in the future depends on age, at what age you answer the question. And there will be a mix between what you think about the scale and what you think about your future life. So you may lower or raise your expectations depending on what stage of your life cycle you are. So anyway, there's going to be heterogeneity by age group. But overall, this is great. I look forward to seeing the results.
Thanks. Yeah, I think about the age one. I guess I hadn't considered that, because too much of my thinking is informed by me and my age, and I need to be not like that. On the allowing people to make adjustments, originally Casper and I had conceived it as giving people the line with sort of 10 brackets that they could adjust. But every survey company that we've spoken to so far have said that that would be very difficult to code, and that would increase the cost. We think that's surmountable. So if we can get the grant and pay someone to code it up, then we can always randomly insert that and see if it makes a difference to how people respond. But this 5 options thing was a way to kind of make it doable within Qualtrics or something like that.
Yeah, bunch all the sticks at one extreme and then allow them to drag them where they want.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Thanks.
I believe Michael was next.
Oh yeah. So I guess I'm curious about, so with the sort of the tweet description, so that you kind of want someone to say, here's what my life would look like if it was a 0 out of 10 or sort of a 7 out of 10. That's the idea. I guess I'm not quite. I wonder what you would infer from those answers. So I'm just thinking you collect that information and then sort of what you do with it. I had sort of a similar thought about your last questions at the end. So if someone says their scale is similar or it's different, I mean, what sort of further inference do you make once you've collected that?
So on the tweet descriptions, I think primarily I'm mostly just interested in the comparisons and the numerical numbers, and the tweets are just for them to look at what their scale was and to overcome the recall bias in that way. And then I'm personally interested in reading their tweets and seeing what comes out, but I haven't thought too much beyond that. We're simultaneously trying to do some like think out loud research on this, and I'm very interested in reading Miriam Sprang's PhD student who recently did this kind of research to see kind of what cognitive process goes on as people answer this. So I'm like really curious to see whether people just write richer or bought house or something like that, or whether they have like quite detailed descriptions. And it will just be kind of interesting to see what comes out. But I expect to do that research a bit more iteratively. And then on the last stuff, I guess it's just a sense check for me. Like I might be unnecessarily pessimistic about this sort of thing. And I think if everyone says my scale is basically the same and I don't think it's going to change, then that I would take that as a very encouraging sign for a lot of the public policy applications that I'm otherwise quite skeptical of, for example. And I think it would be interesting from a kind of democratizing measurement point of view as well, to see whether people kind of endorse scale consistency in their own estimation.
So I thought we were going to use the tweets for like some fun machine learning and then doing sentiment analysis and cluster analysis. But
yeah, we can do all that, but I have no idea how to do that, so that's on you.
I believe Miriam was next.
I just want to echo the others that I really like this approach. It's quite labor intensive, but I'm very curious what comes out of it. The question I had to you was also following up on Claudia's question is, how do you intend to interpret the last question? And why in the first place do you want to ask it? That you ask people to project their ideas about using a response scale in 5 years from now? I cannot fathom what you want to gain from that question. So please help me understand what you had in mind.
So I guess, yeah, I'm not sure what I had in mind. It was kind of off the cuff, to be honest. Partially, I have to confess that when I was talking to the main survey that I wanted to do this with, they said that there's heaps of space for extra questions. And so I was kind of percolating on some extra questions. I do think that when I talk to the public about scale norming, a lot of them seem to tell me that they think they do scale norm, but then when I talk to researchers, there's a bit more skepticism about it. So I guess in part, I just wanted to get the public's point of view. And I wanted to see what came out. And I think it would be, if it's just mostly in the middle, like people are like, well, there's a bit of change or there's not much change, then it's not very interesting. But it was a very low cost question to ask. Whereas if they say my scale is the same as it was last year and it's going to stay the same, then I think that's something that we should maybe take seriously, even if it seems to us that in our data there's changes.
Would it be an idea to make the time frame smaller? So they can
sure.
have a past of a year and next year. So it's, people have a better idea. 5 years is a long time.
Yeah, that's fair. That's good.
I'm realizing that we're slowly running out of time. So maybe the idea that we could do is if I could ask Carolyn, Alois, and Christian to ask their question before then Mark answers, and then Mark, you try to compute a summary.
Very nice idea. I think it's an interesting approach. I also was wondering along the same lines of what Miriam just said. I'm not sure people can predict. I know I couldn't tell you what is going to happen 5 years from now in terms of how I think about my life satisfaction, or even a year from now, or even 6 months from now. So I don't know how useful it is. And so I think you'll end up getting the same information from everyone, which is some average of what they think about now, or predicting stability because that's more comfortable to think about. So I guess I wouldn't spend your real estate on that last question.
Okay.
But I would spend it on some segment of the appraisal questions. You could choose a domain. Standards of comparison might be very useful. I know you said you can't use a 28 item, it's too many, they only want 3, but you could choose a few and just use those. And they are very, they don't require coding like the open text data that you'll get, which, it can be very fun to look at, but it's just so much work. And then you have to have inter-rater reliability. So those are my comments.
Thanks, it's very helpful.
So I think your tweets that you're asking for, I think, are very interesting for potential study of interpersonal comparability. So you might present these tweets to other people and to ask them, how would they rate their life if they would be in this life? Or you could also ask them, what do you think how this person rated himself or herself? And of course, it would be good to have some theory what you expect from this, but I think this would be helpful.
Christian?
Yeah, so I also like the letting them fill the vignettes and what could come up from there. But I'm very sympathetic also to the doubts about the question in the future. I mean, how confident people are answering that. And in fact, if I may, I would like to also to push even in the previous question of the question that you're asking people to choose the thresholds now, because I think there's a larger worry here that like researchers are theorizing, that there's an attribute. And then they're also theorizing that perhaps people don't have direct access to this attribute. So we impose that there's a response function now. And that creates an unobservable problem, like a second level unobservable problem. But then we try to solve that unobservable problem by asking directly the people about that response function, which is what you're doing there. But why should we be more confident in their answers to the thresholds than in the original answer for the numbers of happiness? I think it's like asking them to give you the value of a parameter of a model that they might not share the model now. So I'm really wondering whether we are asking too much. So we are creating a problem and we are creating a theoretical construct to solve that problem in a way or handle the problem. And then we are saying, well, but in the end, there was no problem because the very same people can answer, what are the thresholds now? And that assumes that they are thinking in the same terms that the theoreticians are.
Mark?
Very quick responses. Yep. So I think the best thing is just to drop the last two questions, or certainly the very last question. I think Caroline's point is really good, and I will just include other things that we can use as correlates. I really liked Alois's point that we can sort of present people's tweets to other people, and then we can use that to maybe do something similar to what Dan and everyone did in the previous paper. And then on Christian's point, I think I completely agree. But I guess I want to do this just to see what comes out, because I think we need to start asking some questions and getting some kind of data to have a look at this. But I think my prior is what you just said. Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much, and thanks for all these really cool comments and questions and ideas.